Yes, Dr. Bhattacharya, start.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I welcome all our participants to this special lecture webinar for students. I request the students to please mute their mic. Thank you so much, everyone. Please keep your mic muted. And this is a very special lecture webinar in which we are going to listen to Dr. Basu shed special light on Edward II as a play, on her rereading of the play, and we are eagerly looking forward to Dr. Basu delivering her special lecture. In Marlowe's Edward II, we have the beginning of a type of historical tragedy which is not based upon the Senecan formula, although the play displays a horror more moving than the Senecan cliches ever could, because it is more realistic. We have in Edward II, perhaps for the first time in Elizabethan drama, a tragedy of character in which a potentially good man comes to destruction because of inherent weaknesses which make him incapable of coping with a crisis which he himself has helped to create. And in his downfall, he carries with him the sympathies of the audience. So, without further ado, I would request our dear principal sir, who is also a professor of the physics department, an extremely accomplished person with many national and international research publications, and who has been leading from the front in making our institution prominent among all educational institutions of the South 24 Parganas. Sir, I extend you a very, very warm welcome. Dr. Chando, we are all looking, and as I'm sure the students are also extremely looking forward to their listening to their beloved principal. And Dr. Chando, principal sir, I now request you to kindly deliver your inaugural address.
Thank you, Mantakini,
Thank you,
for
sir.
the lovely words towards me. A very good afternoon to the distinguished guests, speaker, dear colleagues, students, and ladies and gentlemen. Today's webinar, titled Edward II, Rereading, has been arranged by the Department of English in collaboration with the IQAC of our college. Although I am not a person who belongs to the English literature fraternity, I thank the organizers for arranging this and giving me the opportunity of delivering the inaugural talk. I feel myself as ineligible to tell anything about the literary values of the plays, novels that have been written based on the stories of Edward II. As I come across the historical description of the character, I come to know that he lived during the period 1284 to 1327 in England. He was the king of England from 1307 to January 1327 until he was deposed. He was the fourth son of King Edward I and became the heir of the throne after his father's death and due to the death of his elder brother Alfonso. He was knighted in 1306 because of his bold and powerful roles in the campaign of pacifying Scotland during his father's reign. He married Isabella, the daughter of the powerful King Philip IV of France in 1308, as part of a long-running effort to resolve tensions between the English and French crown. In 1300, a person, Piers Gaveston, joined in his household. His relationship with the king was very controversial, The precise nature of the relationship is uncertain. They may have been friends, lovers, or sworn brothers. Edward's relationship with Gaveston inspired Christopher Marlowe's 1952 play Edward II, along with other plays, films, novels, and media. Gaveston's power as Edward's favorite provoked discontent both among the barons and the French royal family, and Edward was forced to exile him until his head was chopped off by the nobility in 1312. A couple of other male suitors followed before Hugh Le Despencer, son of the Earl of Winchester, recklessly abused his position to carve out a vast domain covering most of South Wales. In a world where land was power, Hugh became someone to be reckoned with. Indeed, nobody was safe from Hugh's depredations, and one could easily lose everything they owned on the basis of a quiet chat between the dispenser and the king. So was the situation. A sensible king should have foreseen the inevitable rebellion. By 1321, the aristocracy's retinues were camped outside London's walls, unable to break in, but too terrified of Hugh's retribution to back down. Inside the walls was the king, unable to compel his besiegers, his bandmen, but unwilling to meet their principal demand to get rid of Hugh. It was Edward's queen, Isabella, who broke the standoff, publicly pleading with the king to exile Hugh for the kingdom's sake. Edward had not the slightest intention of leaving his best friend in exile, but it bought him time. The Queen again provided the moral justification for Edward's retribution. Ostensibly travelling to Canterbury, the Queen diverted to Lord Battlesmere of Leeds Castle, one of the most prominent rebel nobles, and requested to be accommodated. Normally, hosting the Queen would have been considered an honor, but Lord Battlesmere, being away from home, Lady Battlesmere refused. Feigning outrage, Queen Isabella ordered her guards to force their way in. The garrison returned fire, killing several of the Queen's guards. King Edward now had what he needed to defeat the rebels: the moral superiority. Nobody saw the Queen as anything but a virtuous and wronged wife, and chivalrous ideals compelled honorable men to defend her honor. The rebels' hemorrhaging support, it was a simple matter for Edward to take out the leaders one by one. Meanwhile, much to Isabella's chagrin, Hugh was back. Drunk on the elixir of visions, if the nobility had feared him before, little now held him back. Aristocrats were dispossessed in their hundreds. When in 1324, Isabella's father, the King of France, threatened Edward's possessions in Gascony, Edward issues an edict commanding the arrest of all French aliens in England and Wales. Having been at loggerheads with Isabella for years, Hugh took advantage of the legislation to settle scores, placing her under house arrest and dragging away her children. As she watched her husband do nothing, her opinion for husband changed from one of long-suffering distrust to unquenchably violent contempt. The war was a catastrophe, and Edward was soon begging his wife to intercede with her brother to arrange a peace. He might have been surprised when she agreed, tripped off to France, and rapidly negotiated a peace treaty on condition that the king's eldest son be sent to pay homage to the French king. The heir to the English throne under her control, Isabella refused to obey Edward's instruction to return to England. In France, Isabella met up with Roger Mortimer, first Earl of March, who had escaped to France after his unsuccessful revolt against Edward. And together they began organizing an invasion. Although having a tiny army, Isabella managed to turn the rebel nobilities in favor under the promise that she would replace Edward with a new king, their son Edward III. Landing on the coast of East Anglia in September 1326, hardly a soul stood in her path to London. Their progress was so rapid that the news reached the king barely in time, sending him into a panic. Stuffing their saddlebags with gold, Edward and Hugh galloped west toward Hugh's powerhouse in South Wales. Had Edward been unaware of the hopelessness of his position, he must have been excruciatingly disillusioned when none of his orders to defend South Wales from the Queen were followed. With no prospect of counterattack, it was only a matter of time before, marooned with the castle walls and besieged by Isabella for months, starvation would force their abject surrender. A game changer was vital. Edward and Hugh sneaked out of the castle for Neath Abbey, hoping in these intensely religious times that a clergyman of sufficient social status could intercede with the Queen, but were double-crossed by the priest at Neath and had to flee to carefully. Tried much to conceal their passage through the rugged valleys, as had so many Welsh rebels before them. At Lanthrian, they just needed to descend to the bottom of the Rhondda Valley, cross the river Taff, and scale the other side. But it was there that the hunting party caught them up. The reign of King Edward II ended, chased through a Welsh rainstorm and pursued by baying dogs. In the following days, Hugh was hanged, drawn, and quartered at Hereford. Edward II went the way of all deposed kings. Locked up in Berkeley Castle, he was persuaded to abdicate, then never heard of again. Legend has it that he was murdered brutally in captivity. So with this short story of King Edward II, I come to the moment of welcoming you all again. and announce the webinar open. We have a lot to hear from the honorable speaker, Professor Susmita Basu. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see Mandakini ma'am has left the meeting due to network problem, most probably. So I find that our respected IQAC coordinator, Dr. Puggamoy Pal, is absent, and I heard that he had a message to leave for the participants and the audience, which is left with Mondakini ma'am. So we can hear it afterwards. Before that, I would like Omid sir to request him to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, Poulumi. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank our respected and honorable Principal Sir, Dr. Somen Chando, and our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Puggamoy Pal, for patronizing and constantly inspiring us to organize this special lecture webinar and giving me the opportunity to introduce our respected and esteemed speaker, Dr. Susmita Basu, retired professor of English, Damdam Motijheel College. Madam, I, on behalf of our English department and also on behalf of our FAKIR College, cordially welcome you. We are really very pleased to have you among us, ma'am. Now, let me introduce our renowned speaker, Dr. Susmita Basu, before her special lecture. Dr. Basu did her graduation and master's degree from the University of Calcutta and MPhil and PhD from Jadavpur University. Her topic of research in the last two courses was Mythopia in selected modern American fiction. In her professional career, she joined Swami Nishambalananda Girls College in 1984. Then she joined Damdam Motijheel College in 1993. She has received Jubilee Research Gold Medal Award in 1984 for writing a short thesis on the changing role of contemporary women. She was a former long-term executive member of JUSAS. Presently, she is attached to the Journal of Bodoland University English Department, and she is writing on Dalit literature. She is also working for the underprivileged children. We are very glad to have such a personality among us. Today, she will deliver her lecture on Edward II by Christopher Marlowe. She will highlight many new ideas which will benefit us a lot. Again, I wholeheartedly welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of our English department and also on behalf of our FAKIR College family. We are eagerly waiting for your lecture, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Dr. Roy, Professor Roy, uh, Dr. Basu, may I just seek a few minutes from you, ma'am? I have a message from the IQAC coordinator. I'm sorry, there was a power failure on my part, and I got disconnected for a while. Dr. Basu, just a few moments more, please. Um, Principal Dr. Shomin Chando, my hearty thanks to you for delivering such an informed overview of Edward II. Despite being a person from the science faculty, sir, you made so much effort to delve into this piece of literature and to explain to us the intricacies of the plot, which must have become very clear to all the audience, members of the audience who have not even studied this play probably, or maybe they have studied it long time back. Thank you for elucidating the points of the plot so well to us, Dr. Shomen Chando. Thank you so much. Our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Progga Pal, has sent a message to us of congratulations. He has been involved in certain personal medical exigencies due to which he could not deliver the welcome address to this webinar. Ma'am Basu, our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Progga Pal, has conveyed to you his best wishes and his thanks for his gratitude for gracing this webinar. And he wishes the Department of English and all the students and participants of this webinar all the very best. Dr. Programay Pal is a dynamic IQAC coordinator who has been coordinating all the activities, various activities, intellectual and scholarly activities of the college. And he has always led from the front. And we are very much missing you, sir. And we hope you can join us at a later date in another webinar. Thank you so much, Dr. Pal, for your message of support and encouragement. And now, with permission of Dr. Basu, I would quickly like to have the introduction of this webinar, show the introduction to this webinar while we are waiting for just a few moments more. And Professor Amit Roy, thank you so much for your introduction to the speaker. And I will just give a brief introduction of the webinar before we go on. I asked for 5 more minutes from Dr. Basu before she can begin speaking. Ma'am, do I have your permission? Dr. Basu?
Of course, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I thank everyone for watching this little presentation. And now we will go on to Dr. Basu to listen to her learned views on the rereading of the entire play, Edward II, which I'm sure would benefit our student audience as well as many other scholars who are a member of this audience greatly. Dr. Basu, I welcome you and invite you to please carry on with your lecture. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor Mundakini Bhattacharya, moderator, and of English department. I also thank our chief patrons, the principal sir, Dr. Shomen Pal, and ICQ coordinator, Dr. Gamay Pal in absentia, of course. And my thank also goes to Professor Paulumi Shaha, head of the Department of English, and also other teachers of the English department, Professors Gopal Shud, Dolly Ghosh, Amit Roy, and Sheshadri Sundar Chakraborty. I thank them all, and I also, and the thank goes the last but not the least, of course, the common saying, to Dr. Liton Balo, for whom this webinar is possible. So let us go to our topic of today. My topic is Edward II rereading. Now, the Edward II, we have learned so much about the life of historical life of King Edward, and Malu has taken this from history, and it is not a chronicle here. Malu, what the difference between a history play and a chronicle play, you all know, and this is what mainly for the students, that a chronicle play follows times span really meticulously, rather meticulously. That what happens, this thing happens after this, and this happens after this. This is the way a chronicle play grows. Not so much on the nuances and the historical time and causalities. But a historical play is something different. A historical play here, the playwright, he chooses material from history, it's directly from history, but he shapes history according to his own. It's not that he distorts history, but he shapes, sometimes he enlarges a period, sometimes he condenses it. This is the way a historical play is. So Edward II, it is a historical play, and we know about history, most of it from speech by Dr. Chondo. So I'm not going to have detail on Edward II as historical play. So no, it's a historical play, and historically here there is the character analysis. Say Edwards, Isabella's, Mortimer's, and students I think have all read Edward II. Even if you don't, you must have some idea about it from what Dr. Chand has said. So there is character analysis. Even when we have some questions on Edward as a weakling hero, not very strong. Very strong is Mortimer is very strong, like this. But mine is a rereading. And what is rereading? Reading is something we read it. I'm talking about myself. When I read a play or a novel, a poem, anything, I first my attention is always what is being said, what happens after this, and what happens after that. I was curious on what happens here. But when I reread it, then I think how it happens, how the dramatist or the novelist or the poet, they present it, the literary nuances, the language pattern, everything. This is what occurs during a rereading. The conventional ideas of Edward II is that it is a historical play, and the credit is taken from history, and the playwright he takes history and shapes his play according to his aesthetic ideas. But we can look at this play from a mythical point of view. Myth is my special favorite. So, mythical point of view is rather important. When I have reread this play, just a second, a mythical pattern occurred, and this myth is Orestian myth. It is for the students that who are not so very familiar with Greek mythology. I must just say in a nutshell what is Orestian myth. We all know, you also all know that there is a war between the Greek and the Trojans because of the Trojan prince Paris. He carried away Helen, the queen of Menelaus, over to Troy. And so the Greek people, there are city states in Greece, and they all went to Troy. And they destroyed Troy and brought back Helen. And here, King Agamemnon, who is the main king of Greece at that time, he came to Troy and he came back. And when he came back after 10 years at his home, he was greeted by his wife, Clytemnestra. And when he went into the house, Clytemnestra, along with his paramour, along with her lover, they killed Agamemnon. And Agamemnon was killed because Clytemnestra has grudges against him, because when Greek ships, they were about to sail, there was no wind. And one soothsayer, Colchis, he said that Clytemnestra and Agamemnon's first daughter, Iphigenia, she is to be sacrificed at the altar of Artemis. And Agamemnon, he didn't know what to do. However, he sent for Iphigenia, and Iphigenia was brought, and she was killed. But some myths say that she was not killed. Actually, she was at the last moment she was saved by Artemis, and she was taken by Artemis, and instead of her Iphigenia, one deer was being placed, etc. But whether she died or not, it was the Greek myths, mythological stories, they were not clear about it. So Clytemnestra, she is a bereaved mother. And when Aeschylus came back after 10 years after the war of Troy, she was killed by Clytemnestra. And later, her son Orestes, he got the news, and he knew that her mother killed her mother along with her lover Aegisthus. They have killed his father. He came and he killed both Clytemnestra and Aegisthus. This is the story. That is a king. The pattern is the king. He is wrong. He has done some wrong. He has wronged the mother Clytemnestra, his wife, and later he was killed. And what story we find here? We find here that here is King Edward II. He has wronged Isabella. How? He has neglected Isabella. He has neglected Isabella, and now we are thinking about the play Edward II, not the historical story. He has wronged Isabella, and on which point? That he left the love of Isabella for Gravestone's love. I mean, whether Gravestone's love can be explained in modern LGBTQ terms, it's not known. But his love or his infatuation for Gravestone. Then Queen is very dissatisfied, and she somehow got into a relationship with the younger Mortimer, and with the help of younger Mortimer, she killed King Edward. Though in history whether he was killed or simply died is not known, but however it is, the legend goes that most probably he was killed. And in Edward II, Marlowe's play, he was killed. And the same thing goes, and then Edward III, who is the son of Isabella, and now he is the king, he catches hold of Mortimer, and he kills Mortimer. He not his owner. He orders to kill Mortimer and punishes Isabella. Though in history, actually, Edward III did not punish Isabella. He left him with a lump sum money and let her go. However, in the story, her mother is also committed to the tower, which is the punishment. So it is the same pattern, same mythical Orestian mythical pattern that emerges from this story. So now I must I'm telling you about the myth, so I must now tell you the myth and the story of King Edward II, the play of Marlowe, side by side, so that the equality, similarity is known. The king neglects his wife. Who is the king? The Greek king Agamemnon. She neglects the wife. And what is this negligence? That he takes Iphigenia, her daughter, from her. She snatches away Iphigenia, daughter of her, to be sacrificed. Why she is to be sacrificed? The daughter, she is also Agamemnon's daughter. She is to be sacrificed because Agamemnon, he is the captain of all the Greek fleet, and the Greek fleet is not about to move because of Artemis's holding the winds. There is no wind, so the fleet could not move through the Mediterranean, and so it was said by Calchas, the soothsayer, that Iphigenia is to be sacrificed. And this is the wrong the father, the king, he has done to his wife. And what is the wrong King Edward II has done to Isabella? It is also a kind of faithlessness, a failure to recognize the love of Isabella for him. He totally engages. He calls him very bad names, French trumpet, etc., very bad names, and he is engaged totally with Gravestone. So this is also a kind of thwarted love for Isabella. Now, and the wife then takes up Mortimer. Mortimer, who is actually a nobleman, the younger Mortimer is actually the nobleman, and he is against the king. And in the first few acts of Edward, it is seen that Mortimer is for the people, and we know that during the reign of Edward, there was a very severe kind of famine, and Edward, he lavished wealth on Gravestone and wealth on his own luxury. He spent money on his own luxury, but he did not think about the people here. So we have some good thinking about, we have some good idea about Mortimer. Though we have not such so good things about Aegisthus. Then Aegisthus, and along with Clytemnestra in Greek story, along with Clytemnestra, as Isabella, along with Mortimer, they conspired against the king. They conspired against him, and they somehow they won the battle against him, and they captured the king. they captured, and with the consent of both of them, the king was murdered. And the same thing happened with the consent of Aegisthus and Clytemnestra. Agamemnon was murdered. The son of King Edward II, that is who became later King Edward III, he became the king, and he knew about all this plotting, and he captured Mortimer. Mortimer by this time has grown very violent, and he very arrogant, rough, etc. And he captures Mortimer and he orders his death. And the king, the queen, her mother, she was sent to tower. And what Odysseus did? He also kills Clytemnestra and Aegisthus. No, this is exactly the same myth which Marlowe implants in Edward II. And should you say a myth? Why is it not my own thinking that Edward Marlowe implants this kind of myth into Edward II? No, I don't think so, because Marlowe has educational background in a very famous school and college. He actually graduated from Cambridge, but before that he went to the most old school. Even the school is even now is there, the King's School. He studied in King's School, and in King's School he studied the classics. And when he went to Cambridge, he also studied the classics, and the Latin was his main subject, and he translated many works from Latin, particularly Ovid's Metamorphoses. And Ovid's Metamorphoses, it was considered one of the storehouses of Latin and Greco-Latin myths, rather. So he was very much learned in mythology. So it is not very far-fetched to think that he planned this historical play in the framework of another play. This is his Mythopoeia. What is Mythopoeia? Mythopoeia is when one takes up a myth and builds up his own literary work according to that. For example, let us take one instance from our country. Say, we think of Draupadi. She is from Mahabharata. And Draupadi is considered one of the very troubled, tortured, humiliated ladies. And often we find characters like Draupadi in our modern or before that literary pieces. And we say that this character is conceived in the pattern of Draupadi, and Draupadi myth is that is Draupadi story, that is. Mythos was first, it was a Greek word. Mythos was, simply it meant plot. The mythos, later it developed this meaning, that significance. And Draupadi is the mythical character. The myth of Draupadi is being used in this particular modern story. So the same thing can be said about Edward II. And actually, what's the function of myth? Myth is originally a story which was prevalent in human mind, in which Jung says that this existence myth is in the collective unconsciousness of common humanity. And there is this idea in one's mind. First, myth is being used as explicatory, as if explaining something. In previous, in the old world, in the ancient world, there was no such scientific knowledge, and so they tried to explain this in this way, that say in Hindu myth we have, when there was this earthquake, it is said that I think earth is rested on the head of Basuki, the snake, and when that Basuki he turns his head, the earth is there is this earthquake. So we can find this same sort of explicatory function of myth, say in the myth of say Proserpina. Proserpina, in Greek myth she was called Persephone. So Proserpina, she is the daughter of Demeter. Demeter is the goddess of cereals, etc., other vegetations. And when once Demeter was not present, Proserpina went out, she was being captured by Pluto. Pluto is the king of the underworld, and Pluto took her underworld, and Demeter, when she went back, she could not find her daughter. She was very sad, and later, with the help of Zeus is the Zeus or Jupiter. He was the king of gods, like Indra of Hindu mythology. He took Jupiter, and he asked Jupiter to return to do something about her lost daughter. Jupiter was then arranged so that Proserpina went back to her mother, and you said there was a condition that you said if Proserpina ate something in the underworld, then it is not possible for him to bring her back. But when they went in the underworld, it is seen that Proserpina, she has altogether has been taking nothing, but just that point she has taken only 6 grains of pomegranate. So in Vedana chota dana, 6 grains of pomegranates, and it is decided that she will stay 6 months on earth and 6 months in the under earth. And this explains the condition that during the winter, in the 6 months when Proserpina was in the Hades, was with Pluto, the earth would be very barren, and in the 6 months she is with Demeter, the earth is full of vegetation. So this is how it is being explained, explanation of a story. But later, these myths are there are so much scientific knowledge, so much scientific progress, and these are not explicatory. The myth has lost its explicatory values, and they are they are used mainly as allegory or symbols. And even this same allegory, which is being used by different writers or different literary writers or different other writers, they use it very differently. For example, let us talk about the myth of Oedipus. We all know the story of Oedipus. Oedipus is the king of was the king, and there was some famine or etc., some trouble with his kingdom, and it was later being found that Oedipus actually Oedipus unwittingly has killed his father and married his own mother, begetting children. So this is the story of Oedipus, and the story of Oedipus, that is his alienation from the family, and later his joining the family. Everything is being said in this myth. But in the Greek myth, when Sophocles in his play deals with this story, Oedipus, he doesn't deal with the say what is this fate of Oedipus, the sadness inherent in Oedipus, but he makes Oedipus a very arrogant character, and this arrogance, he says, is the prime fault of Oedipus. This is it is being called Hamashiach in Greek myth. That is the main fault for which he falls. So this arrogance, Oedipus is very arrogant as to whether he can whether he can know who is the polluter of his land, and though he is being requested many times that not to know the name, but he is heading towards his tragedy towards by making this arrogant search for this name. So this for Oedipus, for Sophocles, for his tragedy, arrogance of Oedipus is the main thing. But when it comes to much later, in late 19th century, to Freud, Freud deals with this myth of Oedipus. He calls it Oedipus complex. And what is this Oedipus complex? Oedipus complex is a thing where the son feels love, kind of love towards his mother. This love is, you can say, this kind of affinity towards his mother. And this he calls Oedipus complex, which is inherent in men. Later, in 20th century, I have seen the question, but I will deal with the questions later, after I have finished it. So, later, when Oedipus is being, this Oedipus complex, this is being dealt by D.H. Lawrence in Sons and Lovers. In his Sons and Lovers, the main character, Paul Morrell, he has got a sort of affinity with his mother, and there is really a sort of trouble what to do with whether he should stay with his mother or stay with his mother or with his beloved. That is a sort of a very complex situation emerges. So what I want to say that the writers, they, when they take the same myth, they use it very different ways. So in Edward II also, Marlowe used this myth of Orestes, but with a difference. For example, his Agamemnon is a strong character, but Edward II was not. Edward II is a weakling king. His Agamemnon, he has got some sort of arrogance, and in Aeschylus' play Agamemnon, we find that Agamemnon, when he comes into towards his house, when he gets down from his chariot, he walks with his unwashed feet on a red carpet, a red silken carpet, and this is a sort of arrogance that before paying homage to the household gods, this showing of this walking on red carpet is a mark of arrogance, which is considered a mark of arrogance in the days of Aeschylus. And this arrogance, it is being later when he goes into the house with that scene of the daughter's blood at his hand, he is being killed. In Edward II, Edward II doesn't show any sort of arrogance, though he's pleased actually. What he says that he pleased actually before the noblemen for gravestone, and his arrogance can be seen only in the case of Isabella. Isabella, for him, Isabella was a thing who is to be showed off, and she is not to be taken care of, and her importance is only for the existence of gravestone, the repealing of the banishment order of banishment of gravestone. That is why she existed. So this is, but one thing is important, that is in both the stories of Agamemnon and Orestes, and the story of Edward II, the most important thing is love. We'll find that the mother's love, which is in Clytemnestra, is being is being totally trampled down by Agamemnon. He wanted to be the most important, the captain of the Greek fleet, and that's why he has to sacrifice his daughter. So that this very human thing, is human consideration, is being sacrificed. In Edward II also, the love of not a mother but a wife, the love of Isabel is being trampled down. So love is the main theme here. And you'll find if we read the play thoroughly, then we find there are so many uh, pairs of lover. So many pairs of lover is being mentioned. And not only pairs, but even the some love person who were famous for this love. For example, we in the beginning, in Act 1, Scene 1, we find that Gaveston is coming from France, and he is reading a letter, and his remarks that he is like Leander. This is another Greek myth that Leander is a lover who crosses a river over to Hero. Hero is beloved. This Leander, and also Leander again, is a symbol of tragedy, a symbol of pathos rather. Not pathos, because Leander was washed away. And so Gaveston, when he at the very beginning starts the story, his story with Leander, it is to be anticipated that there must be some tragic thing will be happening. Now, then we find this pair, Diana and Actaeon. Diana was not the beloved of Actaeon, but Actaeon, he loved Diana. Later, he was being killed by his own stag. We find one page of Hercules or Heracles, whatever you say. Hylas. Hylas is a page, is a young servant of Hercules, and he was very much enamored by him. Such chaos was also there. There was Jove and Ganymede. Jove is also, he has got a young page called Ganymede. And Juno was very much infuriated, very much like Gaveston and Edward I were a pair of lovers. And Juno, Isabel was compared with frantic Juno. And she was as if like Juno. Juno is the wife of Zeus, the goddess. And he was the frantic Juno. So always these pairs are being mentioned. Then there is from history Alexander Hephaestion, then Patroclus Achilles, this again from me. Tully is Cicero, again historical. Tully, Cicero and Octavius, Socrates and Alcibiades. And there are also lovers like, let's say, Circe. Circe is the lover of Odysseus. There is a talk of Hymen. Hymen is the goddess of wedding, god of wedding. Dene and Jove. There is a tarot club. Dene is loved by Jove, that is Jupiter or Zeus, and it has been said that Dene's son would kill his father, so his father rather imprisoned her in a tower, in a brazen tower, but Jove appeared there in a shower of gold, and she has got a son by him called Perseus. So we'll find that throughout this play, Edward II, there were so many references to this love, and also the whole story is patterned on this theme of Orestian tragedy. So this is my observation. I find it. This is my rereading of the play, that he has Marlowe has made a sort of attempt. It may not be totally correct. It may be my reading, but there is obviously this Odyssean myth working behind Marlowe, or it is my rereading of Edward II. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a wonderful and convincing exposition of the myths that were involved in the play Edward II. And I would now invite questions that are being typed in. Ma'am,
we can have some introductions.
Yes, ma'am. The first question, I think, has been put in by a student. It's a bit not a little away from the theme that you have been discussing. Momita Haldar from SEM 2, who have this play in their syllabus. Momita Haldar has asked you, do you think the character of Mortimer has any redeeming qualities? In the play.
Could you please repeat this one, because there is another question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Whichever question you would like to take up first, ma'am. The first question that has been asked is, do you think the character of Mortimer has any redeeming qualities? Another question is, ma'am, would you say that the change in Queen Isabella from a devoted wife to a rebellious and adulterous one is too sudden and therefore unconvincing? This has been put in by Anushwa Mondol of SEM 6. Ma'am, should I go on with the other questions?
Mortimer's, whether she has a redeeming character?
Are there any redeeming qualities?
Redeeming quality.
Yes, ma'am.
The second one is?
Would you say that the change in Queen Isabella from a devoted wife to the third question, ma'am, should I read it now or should I?
Yes. Tell me.
Okay, the third question, ma'am, has been put in by Shammo Kanji. He's also a SEM 6 student. He has asked you, sensuality or homosexuality, which do you think is the overriding concern of the myths used in Edward II, whether it is sensuality or homosexuality? What do the myths represent more in Edward II? And there is, ma'am, another question from a SEM 2 student. Simran Nasreen Khatun has asked you, is Isabella to be compared with one of the Furies from hell who hounds Edward II to his death?
Please repeat the last part of the question. Isabella is compared with the Furies of the hell?
Who hounds is Edward II to his death? Who has hounded Edward II to his death? If you like, ma'am, I can again repeat the questions one by one.
No. It's okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm just writing the questions down. Huh?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can open the chat box and you can see the questions there also, ma'am.
If you open the chat box, then I may miss the whole thing.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
But I'm not very technical savvy, so it will be better. Huh?
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Should I repeat them one by one for your? Okay, ma'am.
No,
Thank you.
Now, the first question, Mortimer, whether he has got some redeeming quality or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mortimer has some redeeming quality. Mortimer, perhaps it is in Act 1, Scene 4, towards the end. He is talking with his uncle, the elder Mortimer. Yes. And when he's talking with elder Mortimer, he is referring to the condition of the soldiers who were fighting, and they are going without any money and they didn't have any salary. So how can they fight? He is thinking about the plight of the soldiers, and this is very important because when we think about Act 1, first scene here, when Gravestone enters, he has found that 3 men they were coming into 3 poor men, and one of 3 poor men was who was a soldier And Mortimer says that the soldier is seeking some alms or for some help from him, and he says, go to the hospital. He says, go to the hospital. That is, go to the hospital is meant for poor soldiers. So this arrogance of Gravestone can be placed side by side with Mortimer's sympathy for the soldiers. Also, throughout the first, second, and third act, not much of third act, the first part of third act, Mortimer is talking about the people. We know that at that time there was a very bad kind of famine, and Edward spent money on Gravestone, on his own luxury, not thinking about the people. And so when Mortimer talks about people, then it is Mortimer who is for the people. We who are in the 20th century thinking of democracy, think of people. This quality of Mortimer is really very redeeming. And also, when once Mortimer was thought to be punished, King Edward says that I do not want to punish. I exactly forgot the words Edward II was using. I don't want to punish him because he is loved by people. That love for the people, love for the common people. So this is a very important thing in Mortimer. But this quality of Mortimer, these redeeming qualities of Mortimer, this concern for the state, concern for people, this concern for his soldiers, this was later being lost when Mortimer, he becomes an arrogant one, and he says, I do what I will, I see, like all these things. He says that towards the end of Act 4 and Act 5, I control the queen, etc. So he was losing this redeeming quality. Again, some qualities of him is being retained towards the end when he is being punished by Edward III, King Edward III, and he says that simply I have to face just for a moment. Should you open the book?
Absolutely, ma'am. Please take
Yes.
your time. We have lots of time, ma'am.
Okay.
Please relax, ma'am. I mean, take your time.
It is Act 5, Scene 6.
Yes, ma'am.
This is his last speech. This fortune now I see that in thy will there is a point to which when men aspire they tumble headlong down. This point I touched, and seeing there was no place to mount up higher, why should I grieve at my declining fall? Farewell, fair queen, weep not for Mortimer. So notice these last two lines. That scorns the world and as a traveler goes to discover countries yet unknown. So he is here is almost philosophical, that he calls him a traveler and he goes to discover world almost unknown. So these are some, maybe that through rhetoric, Marlowe here gives him some redeeming qualities. So this is the answer for the first question.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for that detailed answer. It would be really helpful for our students. Ma'am, the second question. Would you...
The second is change in Isabella.
Yes.
Whether it is sudden or not.
Yes, ma'am.
The change in Isabella is not so much sudden. Isabella, we must know that Marlowe has to concise history in a short space. So Isabella in the first two acts, he was very constant with the king, but she has also from the very beginning a liking towards Mortimer, and it was vice versa. He always calls him sweet Mortimer, and Mortimer, when she is in deep sorrow, he comes forward. When other lords are not, she comes forward to pacify her sorrow, etc. To tell her. So Mortimer's actions from Mortimer was also, we have to understand the very subtle psychology of Isabella. That Isabella, though she loves Edward, but she is always very ruthlessly thwarted by Gavestone and also by the king, and that's why a sort of love must have grown in her mind. So if we think in very the subtle psychological way, the change is not very sudden, and also we have to think about the concise the Marlowe in Adrian II had to concise the historical period in a very short time. So it may seem a bit too early, but if you think very deeply about the psychology of Isabella, it's not very sudden or not very quick. I mean, this is my opinion, not anybody can write anything else about it, and of course, with references to the text, anybody can write anything.
Yes,
And with full
absolutely.
credit.
Literature is open to so many interpretations. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, ma'am. Again, a very, very detailed explanation of the change in her character. Thank you so much for quoting from the text and for actually quoting by acts, which would be very helpful to our students as well. Ma'am, the third question is the question about
Sensuality or homosexuality.
Yes, ma'am.
Here, if we read the chronicles of those days, three famous chronicles on which Christopher Marlowe relied, that is Holinshed, Fabian, and Stowe. These chronicles are not very clear about the nature of love between Gavestone and Edward II, and later between Edward II and Spencer, younger Spencer. So, and in the this 20th century, we talk much about homosexuality openly, but in those days, this openness was not seen mainly because church was very much against it. Church used to punish people who has got this sort of tendencies. So this word homosexuality, it is itself a taboo. So sensuousness or sensuality, it may be maybe there is homosexuality, but a sort of covering up of the, should I say, within quotes, naked thing with this word sensuality can be said. I was looking the other day for some pictures of Edward II. Actually, I was very much interested in your flyer. You have given a picture. What is this picture for? And I saw that this picture is Edward's effigy in Gloucester Castle. But while I was looking for the picture, I found another picture. It was drawn by some artist. I forgot his name. Artist. You all have found it. Must have found it while you are thinking about Edward, searching about Edward II in Nate. This picture is drawn by late 17th century artist and late 17th century or 18th century artist. Sorry, 18th century artist. 18th century artist. And there, this picture is that Gavestone and Edward, they are leaning towards each other, and the pose, the body language is, which we may call homosexuality. That they both are gay. But and while the lords are looking on. So
yes.
We can interpret it both ways. And as homosexuality is a word which is not to be used in Edward II's days or even in Marlowe's days also. So it was better for the people of that time to cover this word homosexuality with the word sensuality.
Yes, because along with all the naming of all the homosexual pairs in Greek mythology, there is also mention of Diana and Actaeon, which gives a sort of heterosexual. So Marlowe likes to keep it very open-ended. You feel while you are.
And,
Yes.
Diana and Actaeon. Actually, Diana was not enamored by Actaeon.
No.
Actually, Actaeon who wanted to see Diana bathing nakedly at some fountain, and that's why Diana became very angry, and she turned her into a stag, and that's why Actaeon's own hounds they killed him. So this is obviously this is a kind of heterosexual affair, but it's on the part of Actaeon only, not on the part of Diana.
Exactly, ma'am. Thank you so much again. A very interesting discussion of this point: homosexuality versus sensuality, and how Marlowe tries to balance both the ends. And this is
There's a fourth question.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a fourth question.
Yes,
whether Isabella is being called a Fury, as if she's a Fury, is hounded Edward II to his death, to his untimely death. Now, in the play Edward II, we find this word Fury used once or twice, but that was not in the connection with Isabella. And these are used as symbols or some references or etc. But when you think about Furies, and as I was talking about Orestes and me, I find that the Furies there, when after Orestes has killed his mother, Clytemnestra, there were Furies. And Furies were, they gathered over the skies, and Furies were winged women, they gathered over the skies and they haunted Orestes. So Furies are in support of the queen, support of Clytemnestra. Here, this being said that Isabella is as a Fury. But here, these Furies are Furies which are later called Eumenides in Greek mythology. Isabella herself, she, as a queen, Furies, whether the Furies were there in support of Clytemnestra, here Isabella herself is called a Fury. So here it is not the Furies personified, but she has the quality of the devilish quality of a Fury. That she is, when she is giving her ring to a messenger to be given to King Edward, she just at the moment says to Mortimer that Edward must be distanced, Edward must be killed. Mortimer conspires with her, and she says it is she that who urges Mortimer to kill Edward. So she is as if acting as a Fury to Edward's this untimely death. So the quality is there, but not the mythical personification.
Yes. Thank you so much again, ma'am. That was. This is another question, ma'am. Should I read it out?
Yeah.
Ma'am, what would be your opinion when Edward III imprisoned his mother Isabel? This is from Shirshendu Bagh of Sem 2. And we have another question too. Is the world of the play connected? Ma'am, I'll read the first question again. What would be your opinion when Edward III imprisoned his mother Isabel? This is from a Sem 2 student. And another Sem 2 student, Munna Shardar, has asked, is the world of the play connected to the world of God or to the world of nature?
Please repeat this question again.
Yes, ma'am. Is the world of the play connected to the world of God or to the world of nature? There are two more questions. These two questions, ma'am.
Edward III, when he imprisons Isabella, before his pronouncement of this judgment, he says that you are responsible for my father's death, so you are to be punished. That he imprisoned. Isabella, for many times that I am your mother and this sometimes it's just exactly what Clytemnestra does before Orestes. That I am your mother, that please don't do this and I have done for your sake. But Edward the Third, he was not considering this, and he tells his mother to move away. But then he enters and speaks one sentence. Just I will read this sentence. Queen Isabella says, "Nay, to my death, for too long have I lived." This is Act 5, Scene 6.
Yes, yes.
Whereas my son thinks to abridge my days. Then Edward III, he says one thing, "Away with her. Her words enforce these tears, and I shall pity her if she speak again." So this shows that Edward II has got pity in her, but he is so much angry with her that he says that away with her. And if for one time again she speaks, then he will begin to pity her. So there is enough compassion for her within his heart, within King Edward III's heart. That's what it is.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, even Marlowe sort of made him appear harsher than he was in history, because in history, it is revealed in the chronicles. It is revealed that Edward III merely sent her to be live in solitary imprisonment in a garden estate, whereas here in the play he says to imprison her in the Tower of London. So I think he's trying to make him harsher than he actually was in according to the annals. Thank you, ma'am.
Queen Isabella was given in history. She was given a good amount of money, plenty of to spend, and so her life was spent. Later, life was spent goodly, and later, when Edward II was reburied, his heart was taken, and it was buried alongside Queen Isabella, alongside the grove of King Isabella.
Absolutely.
Grave of King Isabella.
Absolutely. So
And the last question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's still last. I can answer more questions also.
Yes, ma'am. This is the last one that has come till now. So, is the world of the play connected to the world of God or to the world of nature?
Actually, I don't understand this question. World of God. So, if you assume that in the world of God and world of nature, then you must assume that there is a world of God. So, you must be very pious. But you can explain that this is this is not a world of God. Everything what is happens in nature. So, what should I say?
It's a dichotomy. It's a dichotomy because then do you think of the world of nature divorced from the world of God? It's God who has created nature. If you follow that on, so.
But first you have to believe that there is a God.
There is a God. So there are so many aspects to this question. Yes, there is an inner contradiction within this question itself. Yes.
So I am not able to answer this question.
Yes, ma'am. But so many fascinating even myths connected with Edward's actual life. I mean, the stories that were created about him, even after he was presumed to be dead, and even as late as 1970s, we have been reading so many stories. So it's such a fascinating discussion of the life of Edward II, both in the play and ma'am, you have given a fantastic explanation. And I think we are coming to an end of this interactive session, which Dr. Susmita Basu has been conducting in a very interesting way, quoting from the text, and we have all been enlightened so much. Thank you, ma'am, for this interaction. And I would now request our head of the department and convener of this webinar to continue and end this session with a vote of thanks. Professor Polomi Shaha, I invite you please to address us and to present the vote of thanks.
Polomi, microphone is off.
মিউট করা আছে পৌলমি মিউট করা আছে
Acha. I'm sorry. I'm extremely sorry. Thank you, Mondaginidhi. Thank you, Gopadi, Amidda, all for telling me to unmute my mic. And now I deliver the vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the head of our institution, Dr. Shomen Chandu, for allowing us to hold this webinar and sparing his valuable time for the same. I would like to thank our dynamic IQAC coordinator, Dr. Proggamoy Pal, for his constant encouragement for this venture. I wish to thank profusely our learned expert, retired professor of English, Dr. SUSMITA BASU, for sharing her vast knowledge and experience with us. In fact, I could learn a lot from her. I thank Dr. Liton Balo for providing technical support for this program to run smoothly. I would extend my thanks to moderator Professor Mondakini Bhattacharya, without whose enthusiasm and agility this program would not have been possible. My heartfelt thanks would reach out to my departmental colleagues, Professor Gopa Shur, Professor Dolly Ghosh, Professor Amit Roy, and Professor Sheshadri Sundar Chakraborty. Last but not the least, I thank the enthusiastic audience who listened to and participated in this webinar zealously. Once again, I take the opportunity to thank one and all present here in this webinar today. Thank you. I don't know whether I have missed anyone to thank, but I thank one and all present over here. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. It was a real pleasure listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Polomi Shaha. That was a wonderful vote of thanks. And I'm sure Dr. Sushmita Basu, when times are more normal, ma'am, we invite you to come to our college and enlighten us more with such views. And so this session was all about Edward II, whether heteronormativity was the rule and whether Edward II was vilified so much through mythical connotations and otherwise for his homosexuality, and turned out to be the tragic character that he was because of the lack of tolerance for homosexual affairs or homosexual relationships. And Dr. Basu has wonderfully elucidated all these points and given a very interesting turn of mythology. So with everybody's permission now, yes,
Hey,
ma'am?
I have to talk about one thing that I have forgot to say, that
Yes.
we must think about the whole title of the play. Whole title of the play is The Troublesome Reign and
yes.
Lamentable Death of King Edward II, King of England, with the tragical fall of proud Mortimer. And so it is Edward II is conceived by Marlowe as a pathetic character, and the real tragic character is no other than Mortimer. This is a tragical fall of proud Mortimer. So Mortimer is given the place of tragic hero, and with that Greek arrogance, arrogant Mortimer.
Right.
So this is one thing that I forgot to say.
So I'm sure you would find lots to speak about that aspect of the play as well. And we are going to invite you over, ma'am. We thoroughly enjoyed this discussion with you. I thank Dr. Shomen Chando, our principal, who has been with us throughout this discussion, and for his wonderful. I'm still so delighted about the way he spoke about Edward II, and he took the trouble, despite his busy schedule, to read up on the play. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. And Principal, sir, do we have your permission now to end this webinar?
Thank you, Montakini.
Thank
Yes.
you, sir.